Hi everybody, and welcome to a little TED Talk video for you guys today. So I wanted to kind of touch base on something that I just read. It was posted really late last night. It is on the Blood Horse Daily X post, and it was by Sean Collins. So they have this on here, and it's listed as in the heat of Derby battle, Alvarado exceeds crop limit. So there is a rule within the Kentucky Derby that says that you can only use your crop so many times in a certain amount of time, and you have to give the horse time to respond. And we're going to get into that in here. But first I want to go over the fact that this was made as a rule to help the horses. And in my video for the Kentucky Derby, I said that yes, I like to watch horse racing, but I don't agree with everything that happens in it. And the main thing being that these horses are 1 and 2 year olds, and 3 and 4. These horses are still young. I don't even start riding a horse until it's 6 years old. I'll do everything on the ground before then. But a horse is not fully developed or starting to be fully developed until they're 5 or 6. 5 or 6 is usually when racehorses get retired, and then they either live out their life happily or they have a crappy life because they're sold and then passed around. We're not going to get into that whole thing, but I did want to kind of touch on this because I was seeing where people were commenting that that's a stupid rule, take it down, blah, blah, blah. And so I just wanted to come on here and we're going to have a little TED Talk about this, and we're going to just kind of give my point of view on kind of what happened, and, do I agree with, maybe what has kind of been said is going to happen to the jockey? Do I think something more could have happened? Do I think maybe he needs less? We're gonna kind of get into that because I feel like maybe some people aren't understanding, and maybe they're not horse people. Because the one comment, the one comment where the guy said, "Stupid rule, take it down." I can't even with that. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit of this. I'm not going to read all of it. I will link this in the description down below, so that way if you want to read it, you are more than welcome to go and read it. I think it was a well-written article that kind of explains what happened and the rule and everything else. So we're going to go over the first part of it. In the heat of battle, Alvarado lost track of how many times he had used the crop to encourage sovereignty forward, going over the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority's 6-hit limit. Implemented in July 2022, so that makes this a very recent rule, and I'll just go ahead and state this. I think this rule needs to stay. HISA made a good rule. I don't use a crop on my horses unless I absolutely have to. I think I've only had one horse, which was Zelda, where I used a crop on her. And that was because when I got Zelda, she did not want to go near anywhere where she saw water because she thought it would lead to mud, because she had been kept in mud, so that it was like extremely thick. Like, I mean, like her hooves were all the way sunk into the mud. So she hated mud when I first got her. And usually I won't even use a crop. Usually if I need to give the horse like a little like poke and say, hey, you need to go, it's either, my hand and you get kind of like that, a slap on your rump, or I'll pick up a stick I know is going to break immediately as soon as I do that. Like it's not hard. It's literally, I only do it to give them encouragement, but it's not like when you watch the racing and these guys are bringing the crop all the way up and coming down. That's not me. I don't do that. So it's just an encouragement if me clicking and kicking is not working. So here's what the rule actually is. Implemented in July 2022, HISA's rule states that riders can use the crop on the horse's hindquarters no more than 6 times and in increments of no more than 2 strikes before allowing the horse to respond for at least 2 strides. So what they're saying is overall, you get 6 times and that's it. You've got to be picky and choosy about your increments. And you can only do 2 at a time. So if you're here riding the horse, you can 1, 2, and then you have to wait and give the horse 2 strides to be able to change what it's doing before you can go 1, 2 again. That's what this rule is saying. But then overall, you can only do it 6 times. So you can only, whack them 6 times. That's it. That's all you get. And most jockeys save that until the very end. And so like Derby Day, they're gonna hold the horse back and then let him out. And then they're going to do their six hits. So that's usually how that happens. And the last thing that we're going to read from the article is in the NBC replay of the Kentucky Derby, it appears that Alvarado, who has been a jockey since 2007, so he knows the rule, like he was there when it came out. He knows what it says. Used a crop at least 7 times. The final use came when Sovereignty had grabbed a half-length lead at the 16th pole before hand riding to the wire. So what happened was Sovereignty and Journalism ended up head-to-head fight. Alvarado starts using the crop and his 6-hit limit. He uses it. He's at half a length. And then he continues with at least 1 more. I'm sure they're going to be looking at it a little further to try to see exactly how many more he does. But he uses it 1 more when they're at this moment. And then he lets the horse continue on. The only other thing we're going to read out of this is where we see what he says. So he says that I could not keep track of that. It's such a big race. There's so much that you've got on your mind. I wasn't galloping by 10 lengths. When the extra whip happened, I was right next to the favorite, and I needed to do what I needed to do at that time. After watching a replay, I saw I went over, but I had no more time to think about that. I just wanted to win the biggest race in America. So, in my opinion, is that a good enough excuse to whip your horse extra amount of times when there's clearly a rule that states that you're only allowed to hit the horse 6 times? I don't think that's an excuse. You clearly got way too caught up in the race. Possibly could say that you should not have been there at that point then. In my opinion. Just take all of this as my opinion. You knew about the rule. You knew that you shouldn't have done it. You knew you should have been keeping track of it. And you didn't do it. You whipped the horse extra times. They've disqualified a horse before just because a whole little mishap happened and the horse swings into another horse. And yes, it could have caused a big accident. But I've also watched that happen in other races and they didn't disqualify the horse. So if we're going to disqualify a horse over that, should we disqualify a rider and possibly the horse? None of this was the horse's fault. I understand that. Not the horse's fault at all. This was clearly a rider mistake. And they were saying that, the last time that there was a disqualification on the Kentucky Derby, I forget what year and what horse it was, but that one kind of made me mad. But they disqualified a horse over something like that. So why are we not disqualifying a horse this time over a rider mistake? Like, the rider broke the rule. Should we disqualify the horse because of that? And I'm going to leave that up to them. I'm obviously not the expert. I don't know exactly what the rule states other than what I read to you guys. So, you know, there's that. So the next thing I'm going to say is, according to the rule, what the fines and what the repercussions are for going over. According to HISA rules, going 1 to 3 strikes over the limit results in a $250 fine or 10% of the jockey's portion of the purse, whichever is greater. So they also go into the article on how much, in this case, he would have received and how much his fine would have been. And then it says, in addition to the fine, the jockey receives a suspension of at least 1 day and 3 points on their license. So jockeys have like a little driving license card, and when you max out your points, you're done. Here's something I don't agree with. They only suspend the jockey for 1 day. 1 day. I think if you're going to do something that is not fair to the horse, like extra whips, whatever, I think that should be a little bit more. 1 day is really not, it's not a lot. You know, I'm also somebody who, I don't need like a lot of money, and the amount of money that this jockey would have won from the Kentucky Derby, a 1 day suspension would have been nothing to me. So I kind of think that needs to be tweaked a little bit, so that way there's a little more of something to push the jockeys to do better. Because he literally, they say in here that he states, I'm going to have to take the penalty that I am probably going to be handed, and there's nothing I can do. Dude, your penalty is not that bad. You lose about $31,000. You get a 1 day suspension, and you get 3 points on your license. Now, unless he has some other points or something in there, or unless they find that he went over in more strikes than the 1 strike, then he just stays at that little thing. But if he goes over, so let's talk about that. If he goes over, if it's determined to have gone 4 to 9 strikes over the limit, the fine would be $500 or 20% of the jockey's portion of the purse. About $62,000 in this case for the Kentucky Derby. The horse would have also been disqualified from purse earnings, and the jockey given a suspension of 3 days and 5 points on their license. Now, I don't know how many points a jockey can get. I, never have looked that up. You guys are welcome to look that up all you want to, but I'm not going to. In my honest opinion, I feel like that should be more like the 1 to 3 strikes over. That's what should be going on in the 1 to 3, and then it should be worse for 4 to 9. And like I said, this rule is put in place for a reason. It's there to help the horse. It's there so that the horse is not technically getting abused. So, if you're really about the welfare of the horse, you shouldn't be and so here, we'll just say this. Because I am somebody who tries really hard to never use a crop, a whip, or anything, I don't think they should be in here at all. I don't think that they should be using them. If you really want to do this based on the horse, how fast the horse can go, what the horse can do, what the horse wants to do, take them out. Take them out completely. Do not even have them in here, and just see how the horses run. Horses can get competitive, especially when it's a thoroughbred in this this racing, they're competitive. They will push one another without a jockey having to sit there and use a crop or a whip and make them go faster. So if you're really wanting to see what the horse can do, I think they just shouldn't be in there at all. But as I said, the last thing that Alvarado says about it is that I'm going to have to take the penalty that I am probably going to be handed, and there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah, there's nothing you can do, because you just shouldn't have done it. I'm sorry, you shouldn't have done it. You should have been keeping track, and if that's what made you lose the Kentucky Derby, well, then the horse just wasn't good enough. There's nothing else you can say other than the horse couldn't do it, and journalism was better. So, there's a lot of things going into this. Could he have ridden better in the beginning of the race and possibly come out ahead? Sure, he could have. That very well could have been something that happened. But when you're looking at it, the horse next to him, which was journalism, his rider did not go over the whip limit. It does say in here that it appears that he only used it 6 times. That was the limit. Alvarado used it 7, possibly more. It depends on, I want to see what the actual committee comes out with on that. But, maybe your horse just wasn't meant for it. Maybe your horse just wasn't good enough, and you went extra, and that's going to cost you, like you said. So, I don't think, in my opinion, all of this is strictly my opinion. In my opinion, I think he should be disqualified. I think, unfortunately, that should make the horse disqualified. And I think that journalism should be winning the Kentucky Derby. I think journalism should have the title, in my opinion. I also have the opinion that the fines, and especially the suspension, it's not harsh enough to make the jockey think about this more. Because like he says, he wasn't thinking about it. He wasn't keeping track. Well, okay, maybe there needs to be some harsher fines. Maybe there needs to be some harsher suspensions. Disqualify right off the bat. Disqualify right off the bat. There's things that I think could be harsher to try to get these jockeys to think about what they're doing when they're out there riding the horse. Your owner and your trainer can talk to you all you want before the Derby, but when it comes to the Derby, who's the one that's on the horse riding the horse? The jockey. A lot of things depend on how the jockey treats the horse. So that's all we're gonna say about it. I just wanted to make a short little opinion video, since apparently that's what my channel's turning into, is opinion videos. But that is my opinion on that whole thing. I would like to see what HISA ends up saying, and maybe what, the committee, the horse racing committee and everything says. I would like to see what all of them have to say about this and what comes of this. This article was written late last night, so they are still probably reviewing some things and taking a look at it before they make a determination, like an official determination. This article basically just says what they saw, what the jockey thinks he did and did wrong, and then goes into what would happen to him and what the rule and stuff was. So this article is not saying, like, this is what's happening to him. They could always come back and say something worse happens to him. Maybe he hit the horse the 4 to 9 strikes instead of just the one that he says he did extra. So we'll see what happens when it comes to that, and maybe I'll make another video on it. But if you guys are interested in reading the article, I will link it down below. It comes from Blood Horse, and they are really good at covering a lot of racing aspects. They'll do a lot of the pre-race on the Kentucky Derby, like who's the favorite, here's this horse, here's this horse. You know, they do a lot of stuff that has to do with this, and they're really good at writing their articles. So that's another reason I wanted to make this video, was this article was really well written and explains, you know, some things that could happen. So, you know, go take a look at it. It's going to be in the description box down below, and I'll see you guys whenever I make the next video. Bye.